Hi, welcome to the Comfy Mug channel. My name is Christian, and today I'm going to show you how to make your own looping node system that can loop any sort of texture for any number of frames. You can animate the location, rotation, and even the scale, probably the dimension as well. It's been super helpful in creating stylized water and looping backgrounds, and I hope that it just helps bring your animations to life. This looping system was heavily inspired by a couple of tutorials by RC Pongo and Bangimation, so go say hi to them and show them some love. I'm going to break down this tutorial into two different parts, the looping node system itself, and then a way you can use that to make a stylized water texture. So feel free to follow along the whole tutorial or skip around using the chapters however you'd like. Before we start the tutorial, I just want to remind you guys that all of the textures and assets you see in my videos are available on Patreon. So if you want to support me and get some cool perks in the process, just check out the link in the description. Got a lot of cool stuff for you guys. And without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so once you've opened up Blender, as you can see, I've just set up the scene a little bit with a plane and then a sunlight right there. I am in rendered mode, and I just want to make sure that we have the Node Wrangler add-on enabled. So we'll just go into System Preferences, and we'll type in Node Wrangler. It just comes up at the very top when you type in Node. So make sure that that's enabled, and then save your preferences once that's done. And then I'm just going to right-click and add a horizontal split here. And then I'm going to open the shader editor so we can get started with making the loop base. So I'll just add a new material to our plane and then call this loop base. And I'm not going to get rid of the Principled BSDF shader. I'm just going to turn down the specular and the roughness all the way up. And then if we go over to the side here, the main components are value nodes and math nodes. So I'm just going to press Shift A and then type in this little search bar value. Get that, and we'll make 3 of those here. So duplicate with Shift D, bring down, and then I'll type in math for the math nodes. And I'm going to make 5 of these, and I like to stack them on top of each other. Just that way it's easier for me to remember which multiplies get plugged into what, as I'll show you guys later in the video. That's just my preference. You can do it a little bit differently, but just showing you this way here. All right, so I'll just move these up, and then so the top math node, I'm going to change that to a modulo, and then just underneath that we'll change that one to a subtract, and then these two will change to multiply. And we can probably rename these. So I'm just going to rename this to multiply 1. And then this one, the multiply underneath it, I'll rename to multiply 2. There we go. And then the very last math node we will change to a divide math node. All right, and over at the values, the very top one, I'm just going to rename to frame count. And then I'm going to type in number sign frame. And that way the number on here will match the number of the frame number that we're on. So if I go to 0, then it'll say 0. If I go to 50, then it'll say 50, and so on. And I've actually changed the end frame count. I'm just going to reduce that a little bit. We'll say to 100. There we go. Just so that it's easier to see the looping system in action. All right, and then for the second value node, I'm going to rename this to loop frame. And this, I'm just going to type in the same number that is our end frame here. So right now it's 100. It could be 250 for you. It could be 500. However many frames you need in your timeline and however long you want the loop to be, just make sure that the last frame is typed into this loop frame value node here. And then for this one, I am just going to rename it to speed, and then I will type in 0.01 here. That should do the trick. All right, so for the frame count, let's just start plugging things in. The only thing that this is going to be plugged into is the top value of the modulo. And then we're good on the frame count. And now we can go down to the looping frame. And we will plug that into the bottom value of the modulo here. And we'll also plug it into the bottom value of the subtract, as well as the bottom value of the divide. All right, and then for speed, we're just going to plug that into the two bottom values of both of the multiplies. So bottom value there, and that should be good for those. And now we're going to plug the modulo output into the inputs of some of these math nodes here. So I'm just going to plug that into the subtract, and then we'll move down to the top multiply. And then I'm going to skip the second multiply and just go straight to the divide there. And then we can move back up to the subtract node. I'm gonna just make a little bit more space here and plug that in to the top value of the second multiply. And that should be good. All right, so this is our looping node system right now, just the base of it. So I'm actually going to make a frame just so that we can stay organized, and then drag all that in here, and I'll rename this frame to loop system. There we go. Okay, now we got to see this in action. So like there's no point in just ending the tutorial there. So I'm just going to add a couple different nodes here. The first one is going to be a Voronoi texture, and then I will add a color ramp and a mix color, or mix RGB, however you want to call it. I'll move that over to the side. I'll move this as well. And then on the Voronoi, I'm just going to press Shift T, and then that should pop up the mapping and texture coordinate nodes. If that doesn't happen, then just make sure that you have Node Wrangler enabled, because that's what it's for. We're just going to plug that in, and then I'm actually going to plug the distance into the color ramp, and then plug the color ramp into the A of the mix color. We're not going to change this setting here. It's going to stay mix, and I'll show you why in a second. But for now, I'm going to make an exact copy of this Voronoi texture. So Shift D, bring it down. And once again, I want to make sure that everything is stacked, just so that I'm aware of what to plug into, and because it helps with the mix nodes as well as the two multiplies here. So I'm going to plug this color ramp into the B. And if you make any changes, like say I wanted to turn this to 7, I should really just let us see what's going on here. So if you want to make any changes on either of the textures here, so I just turned this to 7, and maybe I bring this up to, we'll say 0.4. Then you want to make sure that you copy those changes over to the texture nodes that are on top there. So we'll just put this black value to 0.4, and then go to 7, because one of the reasons is because one of these textures is going to be being animated while the other texture is going to be loading in, waiting to have a seamless loop. So that's the main reason. If for some reason, when you get to the end of your timeline and it loops and there isn't a seamless loop there, then it may be because one of these is changed while the other isn't. So just make sure to duplicate those changes. And now I'm going to add a combine XYZ. So just type that in, combine XYZ. We'll put that there and then make a duplicate and bring it down. And I'm going to animate the location. It can work with the rotation and scale as well. And you could probably plug this into, if the noise texture has like a dimension little value there, you could probably plug it into that as well, and it would be able to do the same effect. But I'm just, for the purpose of this video, going to plug those in. And then for the multiply number 1, we're going to plug that into the top the top texture up here, and just make sure that those are matching the A and B. A is on top, B is on bottom. And so I'm going to plug this into the y-axis, and then plug the second multiply into the y-axis of the bottom Voronoi texture. And now, if we press play, let me bring this back to the start of my timeline. If I press play, then we should see a texture looping. Now it's not looping seamlessly, and that is just because I forgot to plug in the divide. So the divide is going into the factor of the mix color, and now it should loop seamlessly. Yep, there we go. And you can see that as one is animating, the other one is fading in and out. And that's just because it's resetting. So if you want to get rid of that fade, search for a color ramp and plug that in after the mix node, and then crank some of these values up. And you'll see it'll start to transform a little bit. But we've gotten rid of that fading in and out. But yeah, so that is it for the base looping node system. You can use that however you like. I'm just going to go over a way to implement this technique into a stylized water shader. What I want to do now with this as the base, and I'm actually going to bring the scale up to 14 for both of them. There we go. And I'm going to reverse this these color ramps. So I'll probably put that at like 0.8 and then this at 0.3. There we go. And 0.8, just to make sure there's no numbers that I'm not seeing. And we'll do the same over here. So this would be at 0.8 and this one at 0.3. So now we have just a few bubbles here, and they'll just be moving along. And I'm going to change the scale just a little bit. So on the x-axis, I'm going to put 3.5 and bring that over to the bottom texture, 3.5. There we go. So now we have just a little bit longer looking streaks here. And let me actually just get a little bit more organized. I'm going to bring in another frame and place that on top, and I'm going to duplicate that and bring that down here as well. And then I'll just select all of these and bring that into this frame. And we'll just say that this is the shimmer effect. Awesome. All right, and now down here, like this is a lot going on. I just want it in a small area. right? So I'm just going to make a gradient. So just search gradient texture, grab that, place it there, and then I'm going to change this to spherical. Press Control T for the mapping and texture coordinate node, and I will change this to UV. And then let me actually connect this. So I'm just going to add a color ramp, bring the color into the factor here, and then Shift Control to just see what the gradient texture is doing. All right, and so if I have this right, I'm just gonna bring this. Gradient textures are really strange to work with for me. I don't know why. Okay, so I messed around with the mapping node location and scale a little bit more, and I think that these values should work. So on the location, just put 1.2 meters for the x-axis, y would be 15 meters, and then the scale on the x-axis is negative 2.4, and then y is negative 30. And that should work. You should get something like this here. And then I just want to bring up the black value a little bit. I think that should be good. And then maybe just turn the white value down a little bit. I'll say at 0.7. 0.7 should work. Okay. Now bring over my handy dandy frame and just plug that in. There we go. And this is just going to act as a mask for our shimmer effect. So now what I want to do is I'll bring this over a little bit and then just add another mix node. So I can actually click on this and then press Shift D, bring that over. And I'm going to change this one to a soft light because we're not dealing with the looping node anymore. So that's good as it is. But now I actually want to bring this down to B and then plug the color ramp into A. And we'll just see what that looks like there. Yeah, that's looking a lot better. So now we have this cool water effect. We could probably crank up the values a little bit more. So just to get a nice solid edge there. There we go. Yeah, it also kind of looks like an audio spectrum or something like that. So you could probably play around with that however you'd like. But now what I'm going to do is just plug this in the color of the color ramp into the alpha here. And this is the only way I know how to make things transparent where it's black, make it transparent. If you guys have any other solutions for that than using the Principled BSDF shader, feel free to put that in the comments. That would be a huge help for me, and I'm sure a lot of other people. But anyways, so just plug that into the alpha. We're going to come down into the sidebar here and change this blending mode from opaque to alpha hashed. And then we could probably just do no shadow mode on there. I'll make sure that this is true white color, and then I can probably just turn up the emission. We'll go with white as well. And there we go. We have a little water shimmer. You can make this a little bit more opaque so that those little pixelated things aren't there anymore. And we just press play. And we have this cool effect. You can use this technique to make all sorts of really crazy looking and amazing sort of textures here. This tutorial was just to show you how to get started with that and making a seamlessly looping node system. If you want to use the same project files that I'm using and the assets that I'm making in these videos, go ahead and hop over to Patreon. I have all of those assets available there with a few more perks. Liking and subscribing with notifications is a huge help for me as well, so if you enjoyed the video, feel free to do that. I hope that this really helped you guys out and can maybe bring your projects to life a lot more. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Remember to be kind to yourself and others, and I'll see you here next time at the Comfy Mug.